Okay, nice to have you here, Alex, aka Beatzguy. That's yeah. I told you before. I checked out your mix while hitting the gym, and it's the relaxed lo-fi hip hop chill mix. Very cool mix. I will link that in the podcast description so others can check it out as well. Do you want to give like a quick little introduction about you as a person, as an artist, for the listener to get to know you?
Yeah, I mean, my name is Alex. I'm a musician. I'm a composer, a producer. I've been doing this since I was 14 years old. I used to be in a touring band for about 10 years of my life. And then after that ended, I kind of started this lo-fi project as a side project, just to kind of, I guess you could say, keep my mind busy and creative, something different from what I was primarily doing. And once the band broke up, I just kind of started diving more head first into my side music. And I started to grow a love for beat creation and composing music on my own and lo-fi. And so it kind of grew from me making 1 to 2 songs that were passionate into, trying to push myself as a lo-fi artist and promote my own music and create my own original content. And yeah, that's kind of where we are today. I've always kind of loved music my whole life, and it's always been something I grew up around. Both my parents were musicians. My father was a professional singer for 20 years. And, music's just always felt like something that's called to me, and something that I'm passionate about. And I'm an artistic person. I love art and music and video games and film. And yeah, it's just always kind of something I felt a connection to my whole life. And yeah, I'm happy to be doing music. And honestly, when I think about it, I'm just incredibly blessed. Like the fact that we just live on a planet, like in an infinite universe, and that I exist and I'm able to, just make music and people
And express
and share it with
yourself.
people. Yeah, exactly. And just like share it with people who are also, passionate about that is really fun and exciting to me. And that's why I do it, and that's why I enjoy it.
Ah, that's so awesome, man. And it's so funny. Like the fact that so many of us lo-fi producers come like from a similar angle. Maybe not all of us, but like the people that I met in the podcast, like a lot of had a band or come from like more heavy music, rock music and all that stuff. And kind of we all found each other in this niche of lo-fi hip-hop. Also the fact that like nearly everyone is also like heavily into video games and all that stuff. Having also this nerdy background and everything. It's fascinating that we...
Yeah, it is. You're right. There's a lot of lo-fi producers that I've made friends with over the years and just casually talked or interacted with that, you're right, are the same background. For me, when I started music, I actually started it in church. I grew up playing in the church band, and then that kind of gave me the confidence to start my own band and start my own music. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I've met so many lo-fi producers where I've talked to them and been like, hey, I came from a band too. And then you go deeper and it's like, yeah, I started playing in church too. So it's really funny.
Have you met Johnny Bailey then?
I know who he is. I believe we're friends on Instagram, but I have not personally met him, no.
Because he also started with church, in the church doing music.
Really?
Yes. I also had him like twice on the pod. And I thought like, okay, what a coincidence.
Yeah, and I was actually talking about this with my girlfriend the other day. I think that like the reason you meet so many musicians, especially in our DIY scene where they're just like, I started in church when I was 12 or whatever. For me, it was when I was like 14. I was playing bass in the church band. And I mean, church music is just simple whole notes on bass. So it was really easy for 14-year-old me to understand that and just stay in my own pocket.
Okay, fair point.
that's kind of how I saw it. Like growing up, like that kind of gave me the platform to, I guess, work up the bravery to learn other instruments and then eventually learn how to write your own music. And I think that like for church, since a lot of church music is so basic, it can be a very, how do I say it? A good developmental platform for a lot of young musicians to hone their craft and at least to have a basic understanding of like how to operate in a band and like play music together as a team. A lot of people, that's a hard skill to learn, and not just music either. I think, even like a job, like working on a team.
And I mean, in a band, you kind of have to synchronize into, the same flow. You cannot play faster or slower than the drums.
Yeah, exactly. Staying in time.
Exactly.
For sure.
You have to act like a synchronized, like one thing, not like 4 individuals.
Yeah, so for me, it was like playing in those church bands, I developed, like you said, all of those basic fundamentals of like, here's how you play a G. Here's the chord that you play when the piano plays this note or this chord. Here's here's how you play in time. Here's how you read sheet music or chord charts. I don't know how to read sheet music. Who am I kidding?
Me too. No idea.
But yeah, I mean, like for me, like when I look back on my music career, that was such a foundational piece. Like playing in church band really taught me at a young age, 14, 15 years old, like just like you said, playing in time, understanding how to like be a part of a team and like just make like a lot of people don't understand that like you can know all of these things, but like it's still really hard to create a band and be good.
Fair point. Hey, for me, it's actually also a fascinating concept because you're from America, right? And you have a way stronger, first of all, like the way stronger culture of like the going to church on Sunday and everything. Like all that I know, like from movies and TV shows, wasn't there yet, but. Also, you have like band playing in the church, and also from the movies you see like people like a whole choir is there singing and all that stuff. For me, I like to imagine being there is kind of. It sounds like it's a fun experience to be there.
Yeah.
Because if I compare to like I grew up in Switzerland, and here it's like that. You go to church, you have like a half dead, super old guy, like the pastor, who is most of the time not very energetic. Like he's just like, and when it comes to music, like everybody in the crowd get like a sing book and has to sing, and it sounds like, wow, terrible.
When I was a kid, I used to go to my aunt. I call that traditional church, like traditional Anglican or Catholic church, where you go. It's just like a single piano player and an organ player, and you're reading from a book. I remember being a kid and going, like, staying the night at my cousin's house and like having to go to church the next morning with them. And my family, my extended family, they go to a traditional Lutheran church like that. And I remember just being a kid and like reading out of the hymnal and reading like boring songs or whatever. And I would just pay attention to the organ player or the piano player like the whole time. And I would just sit there and think to myself, like, man, this is incredible. Like to be able to like play all of that stuff. It's just like, I don't even know. Like I'm okay at piano, but there's no way I could ever have that kind of talent. And even in churches like that, you see like some of the organ or piano players and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. Like,
but you still play like a bunch of instruments, right?
I do. Yeah. I started out playing bass and then I moved to guitar and then I moved to electric guitar. And then when COVID happened, I started learning how to play piano more. Prior to that, it was mostly just like MIDI stuff. And, you know, I can keep a beat on a drum kit, but I'm not like an amazing drummer or anything.
The thing is, I can't play shit.
And the one thing I do wish I was blessed with, and I probably, if I had practiced enough, I could have been decent, was singing. Because my mom was a good singer. My dad was a professional singer. I was a background vocalist in like a screamo band, if that counts. Besides that, that's the one talent that I do wish I had was singing. I feel like that's the one thing I'm not good at all, really, outside of being able to carry a tune.
Okay. Yeah, but I think for singing it, like a lot comes down to practice. Like using your voice like an instrument. I'm a horrible singer for myself as well, but I also never practiced.
Yeah. And like, it's funny because we were talking about working out before we started recording. I feel like singing is a lot like that. Or at least just in the experience of talking to my dad and asking him like questions growing up, like, how'd you get better? And I just remember him being like, it's practice. It's a muscle. Just like, you know, lifting weights. If you lift weights enough and work that muscle, it'll eventually get stronger and bigger and more durable, and you'll be able to lift more weight. It's very similar in singing.
Yeah, I can imagine, because also, you know, like the musicians that tour and play like 3 shows each week, like in a row, they have to be trained to like, sing for the whole night, and then the next night, and then the next night.
Yeah, I remember my first ever big tour in a band, and by day 2, my voice was gone. Being a background vocalist, our vocalist's voice was gone. I remember having an 8-hour drive from Houston to Arkansas, and we were just pounding. What are those called? Those little like medicine things that you suck on.
Yeah, those mints.
Yeah. We were just pounding them, just one after the other, and we weren't talking to anyone in the van on the way there.
Nobody had a voice.
Yeah, none of us had a voice. We sounded like we were at a sports game all night, yelling or something.
Oh,
like, wow. It was horrible. By the time I got home from tour, I was like, I could barely speak. But I do remember thinking, to your point, I remember that first tour and coming home and I couldn't speak. And at the time I had a job where I was, primary part of my job was talking on the phone a lot for like 8 hours a day. And I can remember just like coming home from that tour, I was about 26 at the time, and just being like, how do you do this? Like, how do people go 300 days a year, like touring, like the big bands? Like, I don't know, like who's a big, like Coldplay or something, that tour like 200 to 300 days a year. Like, how did they physically do that? Like, from a vocal perspective.
It probably comes down to the having like coaches and like trainers for that. The same like in sport, like when you're a professional sport artist, you have your personal coach and personal trainer and stuff. I can imagine it's probably exactly the same thing when it comes to being a singer.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like I said, it's a muscle. So I feel like maybe vocalists like at the top level, like the real top level, the Alicia Keys, the Chris Martins, those guys are like 1% of 1%. So it's like their muscles are like they probably have, like, on top of the natural gift of being gifted, the training behind it, like you said.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's impossible if you not learn how to perform every day without getting your voice bands totally screwed up. It's tough.
Be honest with me for a second, though. I love asking this question to like musician friends. When we talk about things like that, like giving your best, because that's really what we're talking about. This concept of like practicing every day, giving 100% every single day for everything that you do or whatever your craft is. Do you feel like you have that natural drive to do something like that? Because I don't.
Oh, that's a tough question. That's a really tough question.
I feel like a lot of musicians don't really ask that question. When a lot of musicians, when coming up, they're like, I want to be Billie Eilish or whatever. And it's like, well, do you have the drive to be that, you know? I don't think I do.
It really depends, because on the one side, I have a lot of fun doing what I do. And it also came down to a realization that I had like just not a long time ago. We can go back to that, but to your question first, there are like phases where I do like 200%. And then there are like months in between where I just need to rest. I mean, if I'm working on an album, I work on that one for like a month, two, like straight up every day after work, coming home, mixing, mastering, making beats, creating that, texting with collaborators, doing like all the busy stuff. When the album is done, sometimes I have energy to start another one or just a bunch of singles. And sometimes I just need like a 3-month break and not really touching music at all. Excuse me for a second. I have to let my cat out the room. She's like scratching the door. Be right back.
That's fine. Uh-huh.
Okay, I had to leave the door a bit open. She can't decide whether she wants to stay in or go out. Okay, sorry. That's kind of the point, because it's easy to give it all on certain moments, but it's impossible to keep doing that 365 days or 56.
365.
365 days a year, like straight up. It's
for
impossible.
Sure,
You will get like a creative burnout, you get like a mental burnout just like from exhaustion. But I would say I have to drive phase-wise.
Yeah. For me, it comes in spurts. I remember writing an Instagram post about this a few months ago. Like the older I get, the more I realize that music is more like a diary for me. Where like a diary isn't really something that you write in every day.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I mean, I've never kept a diary, but like I've always been fascinated by like reading diaries, for example. Because like you'll read somebody's entry and they'll say like, January 1st, I'm very angry today. Something happened, da 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 da. And then the next entry will say, February 23rd, I'm sad, la 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 la, or whatever, or something good happened. And I remember just like growing up and reading like stuff that you would read in school and just be like, but what happened between all of that other stuff?
Probably just like a boring, non-saying days.
Yeah. So as I've gotten older, I've just kind of realized that like I treat music a lot like a diary. I'm very similar to you, where like there are times where I go through spurts where I'm just like giving 400%. And sometimes that's to my disadvantage because I just get so burned out. Like, especially after this last record I wrote, I've just been so tired lately.
Yeah, I can so understand the feeling. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you just get tired. And I think, I think art is a reflection of culture. And I mean, not to get all political, but you see what's going on in our country right now. It doesn't really inspire someone like me, a brown-skinned person living in America, to write or be creative, But, that's life. And that's why I love music so much and why I try when I make my content to be as real as I can, because I want people to relate to it. I want people to feel what I feel. And that's why I said that music is kind of like a diary for me. It's not something that I write in every day, like you said, with the spurts, but it's something that when I feel like expressing that, I use music as a healthy outlet.
Yes, exactly. It's like is that an English word? In German, it's Katalysator.
What does it mean?
Well, I have to Google that real quick.
I wish I lived in Zurich.
I don't live in Zurich. Zurich sucks.
Oh, you don't?
A catalyst.
Catalyst, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like a catalyst. Yeah, no, Zurich really sucks. We have so many beautiful towns and places and villages and everything in Switzerland, but Zurich is like it's a small. It's probably like a small village for like American standards, but it's like a big city for Swiss standards.
Yeah.
And that's just way too many people for my taste.
I know what you mean, man. I live outside of Dallas, which is a big metropolitan area in the United States. I live in a suburb outside of Dallas, so I get it. You know, my suburb, it's a smaller city, but I like the low-key life. I've lived the big city life, and it can be chaotic at times.
Now I have the song stuck in my head. Big city life. From Metafix.
Oh, I don't know who that is. I feel
bad. That's like a classic. I will send you the song. It's
yeah, send me the song. I bet I know it. I mean, I'm sure if you send it to me, I'm like,
100%. Yeah. Sweet.
But yeah, man, music is just something that's really special to me. It's something that I've always felt a connection to my whole life. And even growing up, like I didn't take an interest into music until I was about 13 or 14. Prior to that, I was playing sport. And I remember growing up and like having my family just being like, hey, why don't you like nudge me and be like, why don't you play piano or pick up a guitar? And I would always just be like, no.
Because both of your parents were musicians. So it's actually, yeah.
So for me, it was just kind of always a thing that I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. And then when I got older and started getting angsty and became a teenager, I found an interest in music, and just like all the rest of us our age, got into Blink-182. And
oh yeah, Blink-182 is gold.
That made me want to pick up a guitar.
Hey, but isn't that like the standard way of life? First, like you do everything when being like a teenager to not be like your parents, and then by growing older, you realize that you become like them anyway. Isn't that like the natural circle?
It's funny you mentioned that because I was talking to my mother the other day and telling her that. I was telling her, I was like, I remember being a kid, right? And being told by my parents, you can't do X because X or Y or whatever the reason was. And just being like so upset as a kid, just like, this isn't fair. I don't understand. And my parents explaining to me, like, when you're older, you'll understand. Trust me. And I remember having that conversation with my mother the other day. Mom, if you're watching, you remember the conversation we were having, where I was telling her, like, you're right. Like, now that I'm older, I understand why you didn't let me go late at night out, hanging out with some, like, weirdo guy that you didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, I get that now.
Yeah, like, if it's, like, about such stuff, totally agree on it. Sometimes, on the other side, if you like, let's say you would tell your parents, hey, my dream is to become a full-time musician and I will do everything to achieve that goal. And they say no, that's not that good. I mean, don't let you out and hang out with like weirdos and maybe some addicts and stuff. That's a good thing. Yeah. That's good parenting. But on the other side, it's I heard that like from like I think shorts on YouTube. Like if you want to make something creative or something extraordinary with your life and not stuck in 9 to 5, you have to be super delusional. I think Tyler the Creator said that you have to be like super delusional and just don't trust the reality how it is, or don't trust anyone telling you like it's super hard to become that person, and you should just ignore it and be delusional as hell and just like believe in it, you know?
No, yeah, I know exactly what he means. I've had this conversation back. I mean, I grew up playing academy soccer. You know what is football?
Yeah.
I call it football. I grew up playing academy football. I remember being like 12 or 13 and having an individual coach. We had coaches that were assigned to us that were almost giving us psychology at the academy level to help us stay focused. And I have ADD, so I could use all that kind of coaching that is possible. I remember one time, like, the coach just being like, does anybody have any questions? And not me, but I had a teammate raise his hand and he was like, our coach was a former pro player. And I remember our teammate, he raised his hand and he was like, what does it take to become a pro? And I'll never forget what he told me. He's told me to become famous and to make it at the top level, you have to truly believe that you're the best. And I remember leaving and walking back to the locker room and telling my friend, I was like, but I don't believe I'm the best. I'm not the best. And he was like, then you'll never make it.
You need that super delusional Kanye mindset.
I just can't delude myself like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't think I'm the best, you know? I like to consider myself pretty humble. So once I realized that, like, to be a pro, you have to truly, like, actually, to the point of delusion, like you said, believe that you're the best. I was like, I'm out. I'll never make it at the top level because I don't believe that.
Yeah, the thing is, probably it's in the psychology part like that if you really delude yourself into believing that, even if, let's say, you believe that you reach the top, but you are not there yet. I think it just, this kind of getting into this mindset just helps you, like, flip the switch in your head that will, you know, that quote that if you believe you're doing 100%, you're more likely doing like 30% of what you can do.
Interesting.
And just like to flip the switch and go like for the full 100%, because you haven't heard that, like, in sport as well, like when you think that your body is at the limit and you gave 100% in training, that in reality it's maybe 50%, maybe 60%, and that you can still do like one more 2 reps with a new PR weight repetition. Or if you think you cannot run anymore, you can still run for 5 miles longer.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I definitely, that was something that was hammered in us at my gym when I was boxing. When I did boxing, was there was no give up. You know what I mean? If you gave up, you were getting it from the trainers and probably from your other gym mates. That the gym I was part of growing up really made it feel like a family. So like if you failed, if everyone was doing 25 push-ups and you could only get to 20 and you were sitting there saying, I can't do anymore. I mean, it was hammered into us, like, you do them. You find some way within to you to do 5 more if you can only do 20. And maybe you don't do 25. Maybe you do 23. But you feel better. And then the next time you do it, you tell yourself, I'm going to do 24 or I'm going to do 25. And I think you're right to that point. That's how we get better, even as musicians, as creators. And that was one of the reasons I loved boxing so much, like growing up, because boxing truly is an art, in my opinion.
it is.
In fighting style, the way that you think, the way that you react, the way that you approach things, even like training.
I think every like fighting sport is, in, let's say, metaphorically speaking, a fight against yourself always.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I only did for like 3 years, but I practiced kendo, if you know that.
Oh yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
And there was the same, like, it's been like over 10 years now. And if I check my hands, I still have like the marks everywhere. See that? That's
Nice,
from the
yeah.
training.
The blisters, yeah.
And that's
like
over 10 years ago. And these spots are hard now. They don't go away. And yeah, I remember, like, you have your sword, like it was the bamboo sword, and you make like 1,000 hits. straight up. Your hands are bleeding.
That's crazy.
Don't stop.
Crazy.
Everything hurts. Nobody cares. Just keep on doing. If let's say if the handle where you hold the sword turns red from blood, that just will intimidate your opponents in the tournaments.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to fight someone like that. That was the thing too. I mean, to that point, that was one of the reasons I ultimately I quit boxing, was I got older, and I mean, you're a man, so you know, like, when I got from the age of like boxing as a kid into getting high school aged and realized that there were guys that I was sparring against and fighting tournaments against that literally wanted to kill me. And like, we're like mean dudes that like to get in like school fights and shit. I was just like, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah,
I don't want to. It's just fun for me. And like, soccer was my first love anyway. So for me,
It's interesting that you call soccer football, because we call it football here in Europe as well.
For me, it's football. It's always football.
Okay.
And I call football NFL.
Because it also makes sense. You play it with the foot.
Yeah.
Football, you don't actually play it with the foot. Like the American football.
Yeah, I call American football NFL usually, and then I call soccer football.
Okay.
It's football.
Yeah, it makes sense. You kick the ball with the foot.
Yeah, I'm one of the rare Americans you'll meet that calls it that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's football for me. It always will be.
That's super cool.
But yeah, I mean, boxing, you're right. To the other point that you made, that was the other point I wanted to make, was you talked about how like martial arts are a thing where you kind of test yourself. You're fighting yourself.
Yeah.
It's against you. And I think that's the hardest part. I've seen so many kids like over the years come in and not take it seriously or realize how hard like it really was and quit because they realize it's a battle against yourself. And I think we need that as humans, to be honest with you. Not necessarily like everyone needs to box or whatever, but I think everyone needs to test themselves. You need to figure out who you are.
Do you know what I think? I think this lesson from like the martial arts sports where you fight against yourself, this is also a concept that you can implement into your, let's say, artistic life. I mean, as a musician, and especially nowadays that it's everywhere, I mean, you follow so many other musicians, obviously. I mean, you get into this bubble. And I mean, probably around 95% of the musicians I'm hanging out with, or like online hanging out with, are like way more successful. They have like, wow, they have like crazy numbers. And, and the realization is just to compete against yourself, like be better than last month, be better than last year. And if you start seeing points as that, after realizing that, and after I told myself, hey, I want to improve every year, I want that my music next year sounds way better than the music I produced this year, yada, 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 then it started to make so much more fun again. And the second point, that's the point where I wanted to... that I teased before, and I want to come back about the realization is, I can play instruments, I cannot compose anything. I know like the super basic theory of, okay, I can pick a scale and draw in some MIDI and some single notes, but it sounds super mid. There are like at least 70 or 100 million people making music that can do that way better. And then I decided to compete only with, let's say, mixing skills, the creative post-production skills. Like now I only challenge myself to look for nice collaborations where people actually know how to compose or transcribe for cover songs, or just like play an instrument and stuff. And I only focus on getting better in mixing the stuff that I get. Also, let's say someone transcribes something, sends me the MIDI, making like a better sound design, make it sound more crazy, more unique, creative ways and such. And because I had like a kind of down phase in my life where I wasn't really happy with anything that I made. Usually after making an album that you really like and you are proud of, and then you make like a song and you're like, oh, this sounds like so much worse and stuff.
Yep.
And that helped a lot. Also,
way to compete is what you're saying helped?
First of all, not to stop competing with others, just compete with yourself. And the second realization, and I would say this is maybe a little bit more important, just to focus on what you're good at and only become better and better in things that you are already kind of naturally talented. And I mean, a lot of people don't like to do mixing or stuff. And I love to do like creative mixing, not like the basic stuff that you have to do things in a certain way that people did for the last 100 years. No, for me, it's interesting to just like experiment and make it like sound pleasant for the ears and totally ignore like the standards. Still,
no, I completely agree.
I still don't put like reverb on sub basses because this is like, that's a rule that is okay because it sounds terrible, but everything else, like, be creative. And that helped a lot. Getting like the passion back. And otherwise you just like kind of, you don't compete or fight with yourself, you just struggle. If you try to get better at things that you don't have like a natural talent at, let's say I have a guitar standing there, I suck at playing guitar. I cannot do like the chords properly. It sounds not clean. Even practice don't really help. Why wasting time then on that if we have the internet and like, it's like one DM away from getting someone involved and make a collaborative project where both parts can do what they're strong at and then both enjoy doing what they love.
Yeah. I think what you're describing is the core basics of a team building. And I think that's what can, and like for anything, like a band or anything, I think that's like one of the more important things to focus on is like what your strengths are and honing those. Because the truth is we can't all be perfect, well-rounded musicians.
Exactly.
And honestly, I don't want to live in a society like that. I like the imperfections that life brings. And
definitely.
To me, that's one of the beauties of art. And you're right about the mixing thing. Like, I have a passion for mixing too. I used to record bands. Like, I have a home studio in my house. I'm sitting in my studio room right now. I love mixing. So I know exactly what you're going through. Like, I love the process of setting up mics and like placing them somewhere, miking amps. I love all of that stuff. And so for me, just like you, when I was approaching the mixing for my songs, it was the same way that you just described. I go into every song that I mix with that attitude of like, how can I serve the song to make the song as good as it can be?
Yeah.
And not necessarily, let's come in and try and do all this weird stuff. The truth is about recording, and you know this through mixing, you get the sound right at the source. So anyone listening, if you want a good tip on recording, getting your recordings better, get the sound right at the source because you can't polish a turd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
No amount of mixing, no amount of fancy plugins is going to fix a bad guitar tone. Make sure that when you mic the guitar, that it sounds good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
People like you and me, we have something nice to work with.
And the same as for mastering, like, it's like when the mix is a turd, by mastering it, it's just like a big turd.
Yeah, exactly. And I've wasted money like that before, where like I've tried to do the whole, like when I was first in bands growing up and just didn't really know what I was doing with recording, and I would record and it would sound very DIY, and then I would pay like $500 for a mastering engineer to master our song or whatever, and it wouldn't sound as good, or I wouldn't be like as satisfied. And it wasn't until I got older and realized that you have to get it right.
It's just louder after the mastering. It does not really polish. It can probably take away like some harsh frequencies and stuff, but it doesn't really can do that much.
Yeah, I know a few mastering engineers. I know like I have a buddy of mine that's a mastering engineer, and I know that he spent a lot of money on his gear. He has like a really nice like console that costs like $500,000 or something. Yeah, but he's like big time. He does like big bands and projects and lives off somewhere in the Northwest. But yeah, mastering is a really interesting concept that I don't even understand. It's like you said, it's all these little like, frequency adjustments and just things I don't really understand as a mixing person, as someone with a recording and a mixing brain. I don't understand.
Honestly, it took me like 5 years to understand the concept, but it was not like 5 years of constant learning and stuff. But after like 5 years of attempting it and like watching this video about this topic, watching another video about this topic, it just took like as long to really click. And after that, I understand, okay, mastering is only, if you take mixing mastering as the full 100%, then mixing is like 95%, mastering is like 5%. It's just like I love to talk like in other pictures. If you're, let's say, if you're hammering into a marmor block and make a sculpture, to make the sculpture is the mix, and after that, taking like a good polish, like to make it shine, that's the master. Yeah, it's just that 5%.
I've described it the same way. I've always used ice sculpting as the analogy.
Nice.
Where like, if you're like, because like an ice sculptor, like you said, they start with like a large rectangular block, and then they chip away to make whatever they're making. And then, like you said, the polish at the end. It's like asking a sculptor to work with like a half melted cube. And you're like, okay, make a Santa Claus, and it's like, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how skilled I am. It doesn't matter that I have these fancy sculpting tools and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. The cube itself has to be good.
That's true.
If I gave, Leonardo da Vinci a shitty piece of marble, he wouldn't have made, the statues that he made. Did he make statues? I don't know.
I'm
not going to talk about that.
Didn't he make that like super famous
David, right?
Yeah, he did that.
The guy with the leaf?
Yes.
That's him, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he also painted like the rooftop of this, was it the 16? Church?
The Sistine Chapel?
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. I don't want to sound like an idiot.
I'm pretty sure that he did that. No, I'm pretty sure he did that. He did like so many amazing stuff.
I need to get into art more. Art is incredible. Like, I can't draw at all.
Same.
I just can't. I remember taking art in school, and it was so hard. It was so hard. Like, to draw things. Like, sometimes we'd have projects where it's like, redraw this house, like on a sketch. And I'd be like, I can't. I literally can't. Like, that's way too hard for me.
On a philosophic point, like, everything is art. True. And I mean, it's also art to sell art. We had like this one really crazy guy. I think it was in Switzerland, in an art auction. He sold like, you have seen it on the internet, like the taped banana that was sold for like $50,000. Just had like a picture frame, some duct tape, and a banana.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it here. Yeah, that's weird.
That was sold for like shit ton of money. And yeah, it's also art to sell this for that amount of money.
Wow, that is incredible. So it's sold for £90,000.
90,000, yeah. I had like 50 in my head, but 90,000 would be like 140,000 Swiss francs.
Euro? Yeah. In euro, that'd be more, right?
Yeah, like 150, I guess.
150,000?
150, 160.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that this is art as well.
That reminds me of like you hear, like, speaking of video games, like you hear about like all these like retro game collectors that sell like these like copies of like the original Mario Brothers for like 30 grand.
You mean the original game, like originally packed with the graded slop? Yeah.
That's like highest grade. It's like they'll say it was like the first batch that was printed by Nintendo, so it's like original with everything, and they go for like 20 to 30 grand.
Yeah, man, I'm a card game guy. You know, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Card games?
Yeah, I played like card, like, you know, Magic the Gathering, like Pokemon. Yeah, I played Magic for a long time. Then for a short time, Yu-Gi-Oh, and now I'm all into Pokemon like crazy.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that you've been posting all kinds of Pokemon stuff.
Yeah, I kind of got back into it. It was like my first favorite game. And I kind of really got back into it like end of last year. And now I'm like 200% in that topic. But yeah, it's fun.
I loved Pokemon growing up. But, and this is always an unpopular opinion, I don't know Pokemon past Gen 1.
Okay.
For me growing up, I always just felt like isn't 151 enough?
Oh, it's like 1025 now.
Oh my Lord. I can't even get back into it today.
I have to say, I really love some of the new generation Pokemons. They're like, because people online always talk like about the bad examples, but there are like so many very good. Yeah, you know, like there's this one that is just like the ring with the keys.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then you have one that is just like a living trash bag, like a literal trash bag. Yeah.
That's lame.
You have like really weird ones. But on the other side, we have an apple that grows into a 5-headed Hydra dragon.
Oh, wow.
Love it. This is amazing.
Also, Gen 1 had like, what was that? The one that looked like a Pokeball.
Yeah.
Voltorb.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they literally just had one that was like, here's a Pokeball.
Yeah. Gen 1, 2, and 3 also had like a lot of trash Pokemons. The thing is, the new age trash mons are probably way more into open for, or let's say way more, they have like more points to get criticized, because you remember playing Gen 1. I played Gen 1 as well. It was so pixely. You didn't have like a sharp, clean image of the Pokemon.
That's true.
So, I mean, you didn't really know how a Charizard looked like or how Blastoise looked like. It was this 8-bit pixel art, and you used your imagination to make it look cool in your head. And that was also the magic of the first few generations.
Yeah. For me, I remember being a kid and just like the only reference I had was the cards. So like my friend, if I didn't know what Charizard looked like, I'd be like, can I see your card so I can see what he looks like? You know, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, Gen 1 I love Gen 1. I still will play like Pokemon Yellow from time to time.
Okay.
I have it in my SP somewhere. Fun fact
I can really suggest play the 3rd generation at least. If you want to stay at the old games, the 3rd gen is fantastic. I love it.
What generation is that? That's not gold and silver, right?
No, that gold silver is generation 2. And no, it's ruby, sapphire, and emerald.
Ruby, sapphire, that's right. And fire red?
Fire red is
it's just a remake
of Gen 1.
Gotcha.
But it
Using
also
Gen 3.
But yeah, ruby, sapphire, emerald, if you want to keep it like the style old school.
That's with like Rayquaza and all them, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I loved it.
I know I know the names. I mean, I know who Lugia is and Ho-Oh and like trying to think, Togepi. Who were the other ones? Like basically all the new ones they introduced from the movie.
Yeah. Probably Deoxys and stuff.
Snarl? Is that his name?
Which one?
Yeah. Is that his name? Snarl? The pink one?
Wait. Snarl.
It's in the... It may not be that.
Yeah, I always confuse German names of the Pokemons and the English names.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. It was like one that was like introduced in the first movie. It was like a little pink one that kind of looked like a bulldog and he had like really long like tentacle hair.
Wait, but...
And he hung out with Togepi. He was kind of like...
Is this Pokemon like so old? I thought that was like Gen 6 or newer.
It might be Gen 2.
I know which one.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I know exactly which one. Like the Pitbull that grows into a bigger Pitbull with the tusk.
Yeah, exactly. That one.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called though.
And Subbull, I'm not sure if I just think about the German name. Because the funny thing is they sometimes translate it's so weird. And now I started like playing only in English. Because sometimes they take, let's say, from the NPCs, from the characters, they take an English name. And in the German version, it's an other English name. It's not like a typical German name. It's just like another English name.
Different name.
Yeah, that's
weird.
Like
that's really strange.
In the newest one in the Gen 9 with Scarlet Violet, there was this one professor from the story called Jack. But it's kind of French name, but in the English version, it's Chuck. And in the German one, it's Jim. Why not keeping the same name?
Keep Jacques. I don't know.
Yeah. Why not keep the same name? It doesn't make any sense.
There's other examples where European versions of games have done that. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. Especially with like JRPGs, right?
Yeah.
I just can't think of examples off the top of my head.
That's what I want to ask you. Like, I also like scroll through your Instagram and also through your discography.
Okay.
Yeah, what I realized is that you are into JRPGs like Final Fantasy and the whole Square Enix Chrono Trigger. Is it Chrono Trigger?
Yeah, Chrono Trigger. Mm-hmm.
It's also Square Enix house game, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Square Enix.
They're the best.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best. Yeah, I mean, for me, this is actually like a little known fact. I'm not actually like a seasoned Final Fantasy fan. Like, growing up, I didn't have time with soccer and football and boxing. I just didn't have time. And I remember like I played a lot of video games as a kid in between like training sessions and stuff. But I would always opt to pick up like Mario World or Yoshi's Island or something like that. I liked JRPGs, but I remember just like as a kid being like, I don't have time to put 60 hours into a game, like Final Fantasy VII, for example. Yeah. I remember being a kid and getting Final Fantasy VII like as the pack-in game for my PlayStation when I was a kid. And I remember liking it, but then like I traded it in as soon as I could because I just wanted to play something that would give me, like immediate dopamine hit or something. Yeah,
I see that. JRPGs are like a constant grind. It's like so much grinding involved.
It wasn't until later in my life that I went back and played some of these games. I was actually just talking about this with my girlfriend the other day. I was telling her that that Chrono Trigger was actually a catalyst for me into music. I played that game for the first time in like 2001, 2002, when I was like, oh, there went my camera. Sorry.
All good.
Yeah, like 2001, 2002, when I was like 13 or 12 years old. And I don't know if you do this. Do you ever like play a game and then like you invest like 8 or 10 hours into it and then you take a break and you're like walking around your house and just like all of the songs are lodged in your head and you just find.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I have that with Pokemon. I mean, the compositions in Pokemon are like, wow. Especially
in the Gen 1. Like, oh my God, those songs are amazing.
Bro, you have to listen to the soundtracks of the Gen 9, the actual generation.
Oh, I know. There's huge Pokemon scene.
Good. It's so good. They have like bands and stuff.
Like full-on bands?
Yeah.
Like it's not just composed music?
No, with some of the battle teams are like real rock band playing like a really rocky team.
Oh, that's cool.
You have choirs in some parts, like with the new terrestrialization system. Always like the last battle in the gym, there's like a full-on choir. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the reasons I love Final Fantasy too, especially like the newer games and their music. They're like full-on like theatrical productions, some of the music. It's no longer like, when I grew up in Super Nintendo, PlayStation era where a lot of it was MIDI. A lot of it was
8-bit,
8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit kind of stuff. And now music in video games is like its own thing, to the point where it's like full-on productions.
Oh my God, the Sephiroth team, Sephiroth, and the whole orchestra. It's
and to know that that's MIDI is like incredible. Like the original '97 Final Fantasy song is like all MIDI, and then when they redid it in remakes or like when they play live or whatever. But yeah, for me, Chrono Trigger, like I just remember being a kid and like playing that game and then going around the house and doing dishes and stuff and just having like songs stuck in my head and just being like, man, that music is so damn good. And that was really a catalyst for me when I was 12, 13 that made me realize like, music is fun.
Music really might be my thing. Mom, Dad, show me. Crazy.
And when I started my lo-fi project, I started it out, like I said, as a side project because I was doing a band at the time, a touring band. So,
what kind of music did you play as the band? We didn't went to that band.
It was like emo, screamo, like DIY kind of music.
Like
my band was super. My band was like the biggest influences we had were like Law Dispute, Touche Amore.
Bro, wait.
Oh, really? You have a Law Dispute flower on your hand?
That was my very first tattoo. Like the La Dispute logo here.
Oh, that's awesome. I have a flag of that hanging in my room over here. That's really cool.
I don't even have like a record player anymore, but I have like all the records on vinyl.
Oh, nice. Me too. Like
no, La Dispute is...
the first one.
La Dispute was like my first band that like really got me like fanning hard for a band.
Yeah,
like
same.
Crazy.
Same. And like, yeah. What's your favorite record, by the way?
From
like,
La Dispute?
What are you?
The
favorite record.
The Wildlife one.
Wildlife, yeah. You know what? I'm a Rooms of the House boy. That's my favorite record. When
I got older, it became more my favorite one because it's more quiet. It's
Mature is what that was the reason I got into it, because I remember when that record came out, I was literally writing music for my band like that, and then that record came out and I remember being like, damn it, they were like 3 years ahead of me.
I mean, Room of the House is the album with the Woman in Mirror.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Also the music, is it the Woman in Mirror or the other woman's song? Where you have this crazy dance performance in the music video.
Yeah, woman reading.
Woman reading. Yo, this is like, I mean, the two woman song are like my most favorite ones. And then comes like King Park, because King Park is like, wow, it gives me like goosebumps every time. Even after listening for the 1,000th time, goosebumps.
That's one of the reasons I love Law Disputes so much, is they're like so good at storytelling, to the point where like you just like you find yourself halfway through the record and you're like just listening to what he's saying. And I know that's how my girlfriend, like, for example, she got hooked on them the same way, because we've just like, when they put up all those like lyric videos for Rooms of the House, I just found myself watching them and just listening. And like, he has a song in there talking about like a bridge collapsing in the United States and just like how horrible that was. I just remember like after that song was done, I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
This band is amazing. And yeah, they were a really big influence for my band. Just the like storytelling and just the style of music.
Can you send me like music from your band just to check that out? That would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could go to YouTube and look us up. We were called On Better Terms. And we actually put out a small film about our band. It's on our YouTube channel that I filmed.
On Better Terms?
On Better Terms, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wrote it down. I have like classic my notebook always. Always like near me. There's like different stuff.
That was always a dream of ours too, for sure, was going to Europe to play. Like that would have just been amazing. I had friends that got to tour Europe and they played a similar style of music than us. They were a band called Aviator, if you've ever heard of them.
Probably.
They loved playing in Europe, and I just
the name rings like something in my head. I probably never actively listened, but saw them. If you say they toured in Europe, we have like a lot of big like rock and metal festivals. I probably saw it on a flyer.
Yeah. But yeah, Lotus Feet was like a huge influence for my band. That kind of music, and so I just went deep into that for 10 years. Excuse me, and just toured the country, playing house shows, basement shows, record store shows. I mean, we didn't get like famous or anything, but that didn't really matter to me. I've always made the point to friends that like at a very young age, I gave up the idea of becoming a rock star. Like I'm going to be Slash or whatever. I gave that dream up pretty fucking quick once I realized the chances. And I just remember telling myself, like growing up, watching bands like Hawthorne Heights, Blink-182, Fall Out Boy, just being like, I want to do that. Like, I want to make music and make records and like crowd surf at Warped Tour and tour the country and just travel, just see people and like sell merch and music and just have people like it. And that was one of the reasons I think it was so easy for me when OBT ended, to give it up and just transition into my lo-fi music, because for me, I had lived my dream 10 times over, touring and recording. So it was easy for me to let go. I know for a lot of musicians, I've talked to, friends I've had in the metal scene that made it pretty big, that got signed to, labels like Victory Records.
Crazy.
I've had friends tell me like, and explain to me like, that it's not easy. It's not easy to let go sometimes. I always make this joke and people laugh, but like one of the most relatable music movies for me is School of Rock.
Yeah, the one with Jack Black.
Yeah, and just the whole, there's a scene in that movie where he gets caught being Ned Schneebly and his friend's mad at him and he's trying to explain to his roommate like, Ned, I'm sorry. It was easy for you to quit. It wasn't easy for me. And his roommate tells him like, dude, it wasn't easy for me. It was hard. Giving all that up and like moving on and becoming a normal person in a functioning society. And I've talked to so many musicians over the years since I've stopped being a DIY touring musician, where like I've had friends in the heavier scenes that have told me things like that. Like, it's not easy quitting, I just think that's kind of the unfortunate, how do you say, when you take the good with the bad, that's the bad sometimes, but all the good things, I think, in my opinion, in my personal experience, have outweighed the bad. So that mixed with setting realistic expectations for my music career helped me when that part of my life ended and I got older. I was able to let that go and just enjoy my little pocket of, my little lo-fi creativity pocket. And to be honest with you, I saw you bring this up with somebody on a previous episode. And we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
You can. Just try to remember which episode you referring
I
to.
can't remember. It was one where you were talking about if lo-fi is becoming oversaturated.
Oh,
Do you remember this conversation?
yeah, but I had that like on 3 episodes.
Okay, let's not talk about it.
But it's all good.
The point that I was making with that conversation that we don't have to talk about is I'm not even sure I want to limit myself to being a lo-fi musician anymore. This next record that I put out, whenever I do, I remember writing on Instagram about this. I want it to be real. I want it to come from somewhere that feels like me, you know? And that's something that as I get older, I'm in my mid-30s now. The older I get, that's the more I want to do that as an artist. Like as a pure artist, I want to become more of myself. And I feel like sometimes we can get caught up as artists, like chasing who we want people to think of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes totally sense.
We think people want to expect from us and not necessarily what we want. And I really want to make a point going forward with my art to make it something that I want to be. And I'm not even sure if lo-fi is necessarily the style I'm going to do with my next record.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. We had like, especially with the Corona years, we were like and you said that before, like we artists always kind of move with the environment, like the zeitgeist around us. And especially with like the years where everything slowed down a bit with Corona, it was like the vibe to make chill music. And I have to tell you, I also thought about that as well. Like, I want to make in future like more music that is kind of more turned up, more active, and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, a great example of staying true with yourself is La Dispute as well. They started like super heavy and then slowly went more chill, more chill, more chill. This one record, After Rooms of the House, with the very panorama. Yeah, it's super experimental.
Super.
It's so experimental. What?
I didn't like it at first.
Same.
And as I listened to it over and over and over, I'm like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Did you know they made a video game for that record?
No.
You should play it.
What? What's the name of that?
They made a game. It's free. Just type in, you go to La Dispute Panorama video game. It's like an interactive game where it's like a journey through that record. It's amazing.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Well, I will probably make a video about that if I can play it on the Mac.
Yeah.
I will record and make a video about that.
I wish more musicians would do things like this, fuse video games with their music. Because even if it's just something simple, like just an interactive adventure, which is what it is with the La Dispute, and you'll see if you play it, that is just so cool to me. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, Panorama, once I played that game, it made me fall in love with that record.
I'm so curious about that. I have to check it out.
I want you to play it and tell me what you think about it. Hey, it's really good.
By the way, I just realized we are talking over an hour now, and I haven't played the song that we talked before the episode. Because for the listeners, before we started this podcast, I was at the gym and was listening to a mix of Alex, and I discovered this one song in the mix that I was totally fascinated by, and I would really love to play it for the listeners so they can hear it too. It's also in this mixtape that I will link in the description. But now let's play it for quick. Oh my God. I love this track. It's so cool. I know it's already, wow, it's more than 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember doing the track, but it sounds like you did the guitar and the bass yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can hear that it's not a sample.
Yeah, that's actually something that, like, when I started my lo-fi project, I tried to pride myself on. I've cheated a little bit in the years since, but I remember starting the lo-fi project and telling myself, it's going to be real. It's going to be real guitar, real bass, real drums if I can, which isn't often, and real, like, keyboards, not MIDI. Like, I have, like, keyboards that I mic up and connect to interfaces and stuff. And just over the years, I've realized, like, the sounds and the type of, like, things that I want to create, that I can't really, like, limit myself that way. And also, I like plugins just like any other mixing artist. Like, I love messing around, fucking with just buying some new $15 keyboard programs. So I know there's a whole industry in that where you could just become addicted to just effects and VSTs and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I started that song is definitely real guitar, real bass. I tried to really, like, capture that kind of raw, organic atmosphere. I don't really do that as much anymore, but I've actually decided with my new music and any new lo-fi music I make, it's gonna be real and raw, back to my original way I was doing it.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I was listening, I listened through the whole 36 minutes. Because to be, like, on time for the podcast, I cutted my training a bit short. I cutted the cardio part. I only did the weightlifting.
Just like everyone.
Yeah, I usually only do like 10 minutes of cardio to warm up and then...
Yeah.
But the thing is, I work physically. So I'm standing on my foot the whole day, move around, climbing ladders, and going down. So I have enough, like, movement. Like, I'm not sitting in a chair for like 8 hours during a workday. Maybe like 1 hour, like, driving the car from point A to B and C to D and all that. But on the other side, I have enough movement. I don't need, like, cardio for hours. And but now I drifted apart from my point. Now, what this mix reminded me a lot is that, like, this very first wave of lo-fi music that came up around 2017, maybe 2018. Like, this really...
That was when I started.
That was, like, the really raw one where you didn't have, like, you had no live streams like we have now. When you type in lo-fi and you have 200 live streams. But other to that, you had, like, this 1 hour or 30 minutes mixes with most of the time cartoon characters looking stoned and having red eyes. And you see, like, some basic rain animation. But it was like... It was a good time for lo-fi. It was like the Gen 1 Pokemon of lo-fi.
Yeah, in a way it was. That was back during an era where the only live stream of lo-fi music was 24/7 beats to study to, and Lo-Fi Girl's channel was known as Chilled Cow. And that was how I discovered lo-fi. Do you remember that?
It was Chilled Cow.
Listening to her. I remember listening to Chilled Cow back in, like, 2017 after gigs when my ears were just so tired of listening to heavy music all night. And I would just put it on and drive home, or put it on in the office.
Interesting.
And I was just like, man, this is cool. I didn't even know what lo-fi was at the time. And then when I started getting into doing my own side music, I was just like, I want to do that. I want to try it. Let's see what happens. And that was around then, about 2017, 2018. The first song I made was a song called Laughing Bull. And it was a song where I just tried to see what would come out of it. And I made, like, a basic beat. And at the time, like you said, there were a lot of, like, if there were lo-fi YouTube streams, it was like pictures of, like, Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop or something, smoking a cigarette.
Yes, exactly.
And so I was really inspired by that, and I was like, I'll do that. I'll add a Cowboy Bebop track to it. And I picked one of my
saw that one
from the series.
Yeah, I saw that beat actually.
And then I remember at the time I made like a SoundCloud. I didn't even know like really what I was doing. I put it up on SoundCloud. I got 1,000 streams. Everyone liked it. And I was like, okay, I'll do another one. I'll do a cover of Chrono Trigger because I love Chrono Trigger. And I did that, and that got really popular. And then I was like, you know what? I'll make an EP. Fuck it. I'll do 5 songs and put it out. And then here we are. It just kind of snowballed into what it is today.
But yeah, that was also the era that really got me hooked to lo-fi.
Same.
That was also the year where I, on the one side, performed a lot. As a DJ, I played techno music and stayed up the whole night, came home, and then just fall asleep or just to chill and kind of come down before heading to bed, listen to these mixes. And then I discovered it, but then I also discovered like psychedelic trance, like psytrance parties. I went to a lot of those, and I don't know if you were like already spent like a whole night listening to psytrance. When you come home, you hear like all that small noises in your head, like and it just doesn't stop. So that was the perfect music to just like shut down my brain.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. For me, like, I love a lot of, like, one style of music I listen to on my own a lot, like if I'm just, like, putting music on to listen to do chores or something, is liquid drum and bass.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. And just, like, people don't realize, like, how much, like, all kinds of different styles that are in that kind of music, and, like, house music, and, like, techno, trance, like you said, psychedelic stuff. I love experimental music. Like, one of my favorite bands of all time is the Mars Volta, which is like a straight up progressive experimental band.
I haven't heard about them.
You never listened to the Mars Volta?
No, I will write it down.
You should listen to them. They're a trip though. They're an artistic band for sure. They're one of those types of bands like Miles Davis where like when you listen to someone like that, it's not really a band that you would necessarily want to listen to a one-off song. They're more a band that you want to put on and like get really under the influence and like go on a ride. Let them take you on a journey.
So something similar to Tool, for example.
Like yeah, Tool. Yeah, for sure. Like 10,000 Days is one of my favorite records, for sure.
Oh, I love Tool.
Yes. I used to have a girlfriend that lived out of town, and I would put that record on when I'd drive to go see her, just all the way through 10,000 Days. That's a great record. But yeah, same thing. I love concept records, though.
Yeah.
Mars Volta is very like that. Miles Davis, but I love old jazz. Miles Davis, very experimental. Probably my biggest influence in music.
Interesting.
In my opinion, like if Miles Davis didn't exist and create the electric music that he did, I don't think he would have modern hip hop today. That's my unpopular opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. What Miles was doing in the 60s when he switched his music, right when electronic music came to be, because he was a musician in the 40s and the 50s, and then the Fender Rhodes was created, the electric bass was created, like the synthesizer was created. And you see a shift in Miles's music where he starts going more rock or more electric. And these musical pieces, especially like his records, Bitches Brew or like Live Evil or In a Silent Way, these records are incredibly experimental, like lots of proto hip hop, lots of very experimental, like 30 years ahead of their time, like mixing tricks where he was having like producers copy and paste and add tapes and all kinds of stuff together, do all kinds of like reverse tricks. And, you know, like he would record something and take like certain takes of it and paste them in over other takes. There were often musicians that played with him and wrote these records or recorded with him, and they didn't even know what the fuck they just played.
Crazy. I never heard of him.
some of the musicians, they would record on his records and then be like, I don't even know what I played. We just jammed for an hour. And then he told me to leave. And then 9 months later, they'd hear the record and they'd be like, that's you on the record. And they'd be like, what? No, what?
No
That's
way.
crazy. Yeah. And so like Miles was one of the first musicians to do that, to take like very creative studio tricks, copies and pastes, and taking like drums from another take and putting them in another take and like swapping things out. And that was so ahead of its time for the 1960s.
Yeah,
1970s.
I can imagine.
Was doing that. And that's why I think when you look into his electric, that's what it's called by music historians, his electric period, you'll meet a lot of jazz critics that don't like it because they're like, it's not jazz, it's just nonsense for an hour. But someone like me who's like enjoys art, realize that these are genius 2-hour, sometimes 1-hour records of like pure improvisation. And he was genius to be like that part, what he just played, that moment, save that, copy and paste it, put that in the record.
Interesting. I have to check this one out as well. I never heard of.
Yeah, check it out for sure. I think that concept is what created proto hip hop records, because hip hop, what is a lot of hip hop? It's a lot of loops. It's a lot of like, you take a sample and you loop it over and over and there's your drum beat. And then you drop it from time to time, or you maybe sample things.
It came like from the disco. That's what I heard.
I would argue that like funk and disco, a lot of that was born out of bands like Miles Davis, because he, with that music, was fusing jazz with rock and inadvertently didn't realize he was creating what we now know as jazz fusion or jazz rock fusion.
Okay, interesting.
It was it's really interesting. You should check out that music. It's so experimental and just, it's just very interesting, very ominous sometimes, and like just very inspiring. Like you listen to it and you're just like, man, that is cool. Like to be a part of something like that, to just,
for me,
it's amazing.
I listen to so many different styles in music because I love it to have like a very wide variety. But somehow I never really digged into the area of jazz or fusion jazz and stuff.
It's not for everyone.
I
guess I just grew up loving it. I don't know.
I never got like in touch with it. That's probably more the reason. But on the other side, I always while you talking about the story of Miles Davis, I constantly had like the Joy Division in my head when you talked about like Joy Division.
Oh, Joy Division, yeah.
Because they did like also, they came up with something completely different from what was going on at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Same with like bands like Jeff Buckley or Nirvana, even La Dispute we were talking about earlier. That's one of the reasons I love them so much. You were talking about how when they got older, their music changed. That's something I love like following an artist and watching them change, like as their music goes on. Turnover is another good example if you know who they are.
No.
They were a band that started out as like a emo pop punk band and then basically evolved into like a very mature shoegaze band.
Okay. Interesting.
And very, very fascinating. 100th is another band like that.
Yeah.
Where they started as like a heavy metal, like metalcore band, and eventually became like a Silver Sun Pickups band, where they're like making this atmospheric indie music. And I just love that.
That sounds interesting. Like atmospheric indie sounds kind of.
Yeah, like a Silver Sun Pickups, you know what I mean? Like that kind of atmosphere, indie, kind of rock.
I have to check that out.
Lots of reverbs.
You gave me like a big list of music to check out in the next few weeks. That's good. I like that.
You should definitely play the game though. Play the game.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's not like a game. It's more of like an interactive journey, but it's awesome. You'll find a newfound appreciation for Panorama if you do it.
Wow. Yeah, dude, that was like a lot of intense, nice talks in this podcast. I loved it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, man.
And thanks a lot for sharing so much. I really appreciate that. Also, the list, I wrote everything down to check out during like the work next week.
So,
I would say we are now quick before the 1 hour 30 mark, and I would like to ask you like my last question that I ask everyone. Sometimes I forget, but
okay.
I try to ask that every guest that I get on the pod. And if you could share like one let's say positive or wise thing or something that you learned in the past years that you want the listeners to know, like an enlightening moment, or just can be something super small, it can be something more deep. It's totally up to you.
Sure. I always love telling this story. When I first got in, we talked about how I started out playing church bands, and then I started making my own music. And then I started a band. And as usual with every band, you start off gigging. You play gigs around your local community, right? I remember getting to a point with OBT, my last band, where we were playing a lot of local gigs, but I wanted it to go somewhere. I wanted to do more active things. But I was nervous because I was 23 at the time. I had a 9-to-5 job. I was really busy in my personal life. And I didn't, to be honest with you, have the privilege that a lot of bands do to just take off and tour for months out of the year. I had bills to pay at home and rent to pay. I had a member of my band who worked at a watch store, and he met a guy that came in. The guy was an old man who was balding at the top, but he was still keeping the metal hair. He was wearing a leather jacket, looked like a total retired rocker, metal guy. He came in, he got to talking with my bass player, my friend. He's my friend Travis. And he's talking to Travis. Travis trying to sell him a watch and is like, are you a biker or what? And the guy's like, oh, I'm a musician. I've been a musician for like 40 years. And he's like, oh, really? And the guy starts telling him about, I was a musician, I was in metal bands, then I quit and I became a roadie. And I did roadie for my entire life until I retired. I roadied for Judas Priest. I roadied for Guns N' Roses. He started naming all these big bands to my friend Travis. And he was like, and I just quit. I'm done. That part of my life is over and I'm trying to get my life back together. I started going to college, even though I'm 50 years old. And I wanted to buy a watch for my wife, blah, 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 blah. And I remember something that's always stuck with me my entire life since my friend Travis told me this story. Travis told me that he asked him, he was like, was it worth it? Now that you're a 50-year-old man and you're having to like put your life back together because you put it on hold to be a roadie and a musician. And the guy without hesitation said, 100% worth it. I would do it again and again and again if I could redo life. And that was all I had to hear. When Travis told me that story, I immediately was like, that's it. We're going on tour. We're doing it. So my advice to anyone watching this is go for it. Follow your dream and go for it. You can figure out a way. Trust me, I was a normal person that grew up a poor brown kid in an ultra right-wing state. Okay, I'm a self-taught musician. Okay, I've never had lessons. Music has always just been something I feel inside me, and I try to express that. And that was all the motivation that I needed to realize that you just need to follow your dream and figure out a way to make it happen. And I did. I took time off from work and used my PTO at my shitty 9-to-5 job to tour for 2 to 3 weeks a year. And I did that on and off for 10 years until I couldn't do it anymore and got too old. So my advice to anyone watching this is if you have a dream of like, I want to make a record or I want to be on a touring band or whatever the dream is musically, just do it. Just do it. You're going to probably fail. And like those first couple tours I had, they were rough. Like the throat lozenges thing where we talked about I couldn't sing. But my advice to any young kid that's listening or watching this, or anyone that's watching that doesn't know what to do next, but they know they want to follow their dream musically, is just do it. Seriously, it's that simple. I know it sounds lame and generic, but hearing Travis tell me that story was all the motivation that I needed to figure out a way to do it. And I'm a testament that I'm a normal person and I was able to do it and follow my dreams. And that's why I'm so fulfilled. When people ask me today, friends in the music scene, I get messages all the time. They're like, hey man, how come I don't see you at shows anymore? What happened to OBT? It's because I'm fulfilled with that part of my life ending because I pursued my dreams honestly and earnestly. And so my advice is, if you're watching this, just do it. Just do it. You're going to probably fail and make a mistake, but that's part of the journey. And that's what the beauty of life is, in my opinion.
This was so inspiring. Thanks a lot for sharing this. That was like hella inspiring.
Yeah.
Really a wonderful story.
And that's a real and honest story. And it was very inspiring to me to the point where I wanted to do it. So please, if you're watching, do it. Go out and do it.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Alex, I thank you a lot for being a guest on this podcast. And
thank you. I really appreciate being on here. I know that we played tag a few times, but I love the show and I love the clips that you put out.
And thanks a lot.
It's so cool to I was telling my girlfriend this the other day, it's so cool. I know these people in our lo-fi scene, but I don't know them. I've been parts of Discord groups or just seen them on the internet. And it's so great that you have these people on the show so I can put a face to a name. And yeah, I just love the show, man. I love the concept, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, very welcome. And also, I will, if you're down for that, I will ask you again, in the future, because I love to have little follow-up episode. See what happened, what changed. Maybe till then you do complete different music, and that would be also super fun. Because you also already teased a bit that you want to change a little bit the style of your music. So I'm very curious to see where this goes.
Yeah, me too. I'm curious. We'll see what...
Oh, that's always the best thing. If you're self-curious about what you will do next, I love that.
Yeah, I have no idea. All I know is that I just want it to be real. I want it to be me.
And that's a fair point. And you have to do. Also, to stay mentally fit or stable when doing art, always be yourself. Otherwise, it will get a crazy turn trying to be someone else, and then you kind of get lost in this story of who am I and who is this persona.
Exactly. 100%. Completely agree.
Okay, then let's quit the episode here. For the listeners, thanks for listening. I will link all of Alex, aka Beatzguy, stuff in the description. Go check it out. Give it a listen. And for sure, check out this Relax mix. I'm such a fan of this mix. Really loved it. Okay. Thanks, and see you next week. Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.